Tom had just parked his pickup and was walking over. Carl stopped to greet him. "I'm glad I made it back in time to say goodbye. Looks like everything's fixed." At that point, Tom reached out to shake hands and grasped Carl's hand firmly, held it with an iron grip. And at that point, the world sort of shifted somehow. Tom was talking to him, and Carl heard clearly every word the other man said, but he heard it as though from a great distance or through an echo chamber. "I feel like all of us that served over there are family, brothers and sisters. In my family, we have a tradition. When we have good fortune, we tithe to our community and to our families. You might not be comfortable with a gift, so I left my contact information in the envelope. If you want to start paying it back someday, you'll know how to find me. There's $25,000 in there. As my grandmother used to say, it's always good to have walking around money. Maybe it'll make things a little easier starting all over if you have some money to tide you over." And at that point, Tom had looked deeply into his eyes. "For what it's worth, I think creation and that little girl forgave you a long time ago." And then he was gone, and Carl snapped out of whatever kind of state he'd been in, found himself standing by his car holding a bulky manila envelope that he had no memory of having accepted or that he would consciously ever have accepted. He got into the car, put the envelope on the seat beside him, reached for the wheel. And at that point, it all came crashing down upon him. All the pain, the sadness, the depression, all the guilt and the regret. And the pressure just built and built, crushing him under its weight. He squeezed the steering wheel. It began to bend. And the pain started to build up in his chest, a searing, biting pain. He heard a voice, clear and beautiful. "You get to choose." And then, mercifully, he lost consciousness. Gabby and the boys were seated in a booth in the little restaurant at the motel. The two children were seated opposite her, finishing their dinner. Carl sat beside her and gently placed a bouquet of flowers in front of her. They were cheap plastic, with baubles colored like emeralds and rubies. They might indeed have been cheap and plastic, but Gabby had always loved flowers, and it had been a long time since she had been given them by Carl. He gently squeezed her arm. "I looked everywhere for fresh flowers. These were all I could find. I wanted to remind you how much I love you." And he looked across the table at his boys. Sometimes, for some unknown reason, God gives someone a second chance, a chance to start over, even a wretch like me. Something happened today. I've heard it described as feeling like an angel's wing brushing your shoulder, and all the pain and suffering lifted from me. There are some things that have been paralyzing me, weighing down on me for a long time. The worst things were from the war I fought in. But I have a second chance now to move past all that, to begin again. I want to ask your mother for a chance to start over, to be a better husband and partner. And I want to ask you boys for a chance to begin again, to be the kind of father you deserve. Gabby was watching her two boys. Her youngest was just basking in the loving energy surrounding him. And the oldest stared happily at his father, a beautiful smile lighting up his face. It was a smile he hadn't shown in a very long time. At that point, the sun dipped a little closer to the horizon. From that new position, it streamed through the window of the cafe. It lighted up the plastic flowers. They shone like the most beautiful of emeralds and rubies. And that was all she saw as her eyes filled with tears. They were tears of joy.